Welcome to the DCIU New Hire Orientation. For the next 90 minutes, you will view a series of presentations that will assist you in your new role at the Delaware County Intermediate Unit. We are glad you have joined us.
Hello, my name is Joanne Matucci, and I'm the Benefits Coordinator here at the DCIU. I would like to welcome you to New Employee Orientation. We are going to follow a different format than we normally would. We would normally do in-person orientation, but because of the pandemic, we are switching to an online version, which you will be viewing various videos, and we'll introduce you to some of our team. So thank you for being here. We welcome you to the IU. We hope that your experience working with us will be gratifying and that you will just enjoy being part of the DCIU family. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and review the various things that we will be discussing and responsibilities that you will have. Bear with me one moment. Apologize that took so long. So as you can see, we did our welcome. We are going to have a video of our team, our HR team, which some of them you have met during the hiring process, welcome you and tell you a little bit about the things that they do here at the IU and what they can assist you with. We will also have a video done by our IT department that will walk you through registering on the website and show you the IU staff intranet, which will house many of the things that you may need to access in your time here at the IU, forms and things like that, board policy manual, administrative directives and things like that. And we will expect you to know where those are. And Donna Bartolomeo from our IT department will be informing you how to go about those things. So we will also have Paula Coons from our professional development program share with you Frontline/My Learning Plan, which is an online catalog of various courses that you may be required to take or may want to take for your own edification. So Paula will walk you through that. And Kathy Kaminsky is our payroll coordinator, and she will do an overview of how we do payroll at the DCIU and provide her contact information should you have any questions. All right, moving on to the human resources information that I'm going to provide to you. So I will be emailing you various documents. Again, I would normally be handing these to you in person and we would work our way through those documents. But we're gonna go with email, and I'm always available for questions via email, and my voicemail does come through to my email. So if you were to leave a message on my work phone, I'm able to retrieve it and get back to you. So one thing that we have here is a 403B, which is saving, a tax deferred savings program for your retirement. It's much like a 401k in the corporate environment. There are traditional 403Bs where you can have pre-tax savings now, or you can do a Roth 403B and the savings, your tax savings would come down the road because you would pay your taxes at this time. I'm going to give you a whole packet, as I'm not an expert in 403Bs, but I am the person that you would contact to have contributions made once you open an account. So the packet will show you how a 403B works. It will tell you the vendors that we work with. You must work with an approved vendor. And there's a form included in the packet, which is called a salary reduction agreement, which you would have filled out either by your vendor or yourself if you were using someone like, say, Vanguard, that's a self facilitated account opening. So anyway, you will get that. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them to the best of my ability. And I have experts in the field that are also able to assist us if you were to ask something that was outside the realm of my knowledge. So I'm here to help and assist you in any way that I can. We will also be providing a confidentiality agreement for you to sign. It basically, we need to acknowledge that we are working with families in need in our communities, and people know each other. It's a small knit community, even though geographically it's quite large. So the confidentiality agreement, just reiterates that we need to keep things confidential, and when we carry, files and things from place to place, that we're careful where we lay them, that sort of thing. So we just, need you to be aware of that. We will have you sign off on that agreement, and it will be placed in your personnel file. Workers' compensation packet information will also be sent to you. So basically, we need you to know that we do have workers' comp insurance, and that we have a list of panel doctors that we use and sites that you can go to if you were injured. We do have employees get injured. Thankfully, generally not seriously. Kids do scratch and kick and bite sometimes, and people trip and fall. Those sorts of things do happen. So we do have coverage. You need to report that to me through the packet and have your supervisor sign off on it. We like to have it within 24 hours of the incident. We want you to report things that are record only, which means that you do not need to seek medical attention. And then there are situations where someone may need to see the panel doctor, and I would obtain a claim number to cover the cost of that visit to the doctor. So we just want to make you aware of that. And again, any questions, you can get in touch with me. There is also the Employee Access Center, which is a very helpful tool that we have, where you could see your pay stubs and W-2s and that sort of thing. We also report our absences through this program, and there is an app that you can download on your phone, or you could do it on your laptop or any kind of computer. But we want you to view the video. I have a link there, which is under IU staff. Once you're registered and you can view IU staff, you'd be able to access that video. If you're responsible for getting a substitute, there's also a video there to show you how to do that. Now, when we say that you're responsible for reporting your absences, that is very, very true, that you will put that in Employee Access Center, but I also want you to talk with your supervisor to see whatever their protocol is in informing them that you would be out on any given day. Some supervisors, it's send me a text, otherwise it's call the attendance recording secretary. It could be an email. I don't know every supervisor's protocol, so I will leave that up to you to find that out. Again, you are responsible for reporting your absences in Employee Access Center. The next thing I have on the agenda is a YMCA discount program that we have. It is basically a beneficial program if you were to want to join the Y. They would waive your application fee. They would also give you a 10% discount on your membership fees each month. And if you're already a member, you can access the discount just by showing your ID, and they will take that discount off your monthly fees that you're currently paying. They also will provide me a few times a year with a weekly free pass to check out the Y, and no obligations to join, but it's kind of a fun thing you could do with your family. There's no limit on how many family members you can bring. So when I get those, I send them out via email. I am going to jump to wellness initiatives since I'm talking about the Y. We have various programs that we run, like maintaining your weight during the holidays. Trek to the Summit is a walking program. We just have various things through our healthcare trust that we offer throughout the year to make you mindful of your health and wellness. And oftentimes there are raffle prizes tied to that, and we just love to see you participate. We do biometric screenings and blood pressure checks and all kinds of things. So again, I use email to make you aware of those things. I'm going to jump back to the STARS recognition program, which is a nice program we have here to recognize employees that you or a coworker may see in you doing, above and beyond, or something special with a student, or, anything that might be like, wow, I'm really impressed by that, and I think that someone should recognize this person. Basically what happens is you contact Adrienne Irving, nominate the person, or your nominator would do that for you, and you would be invited to a board meeting, and you're recognized in front of the DCIU Board of Directors, and you'll be given a nice certificate for your portfolio. You'll also be invited to an employee recognition dinner at no charge to you. It's just a kind of a feel good, let's pat someone on the back for doing a good job kind of program. There's no limit to how many people can be recognized in a given month. So, keep your eyes open and see what good work is happening out there. Employee benefits, again, I'm the employee benefits coordinator. So if you're a full-time employee, I've already sent you information on how to enroll in the various things that we offer. We have medical insurance, prescription insurance, dental insurance, income protection, life insurance. There's leave time, sick time, personal time, vacation time for 12-month employees. So there's some contracts have tuition reimbursement. So there's lots and lots of employee benefits that are available, and they were all sent to you if you have already started, so that you could select your choices. So if you have any questions, please reach out to me. We have several contracts here at the DCIU, so the benefits vary, and it's better for you to deal with me one-on-one than me send everybody's information. It just wouldn't be efficient. So please reach out. Happy to talk to you. Love talking to the employees. So what do I have on here next? The Safe Schools mandatory training videos. As you can see, there's a whole list of things there that we would expect you to do. They're mandatory trainings. Most of them are very short, 10-minute videos. You have 30 days to do it from the time that you received the email telling you that they're available. There's safety trainings, bloodborne pathogens, discrimination trainings, that sort of thing. The PA Act 126, Part 1 and 2 are longer trainings, and they are mandatory as well. If you have taken that in the past 5 years, you can get me a certificate and I can see if it qualifies for the requirements we have for that particular kind of training, and then you wouldn't have to do it again until your time expires. They're good for 5 years. So that's that. I will check periodically to see if you have done your trainings. If not, I will reach out to you, but I ask that you do them as quickly as you can, and we appreciate it. And the next thing that I have on the agenda is the Employee Assistance Program that we offer. It is a counseling program that is available to you. Obviously, we sometimes get stressed in our personal lives or at work, or we need resources for elderly parents or our children or various things. I'm going to send you the brochure of all the things that the counselors are able to help you with. It's a 24/7 availability, and there is no cost to you. It's completely confidential. I will not know that you use the service unless you say that you are going to hurt yourself or someone else. Then they would notify me. So I hope that you'll take advantage of that program should you need it. And lastly, you will have a Safety Cares video training, which is basically a de-escalation program and restraint training program that would help you in dealing with students to keep them safe, to keep yourself safe, and to keep other students safe. Sometimes a child might be needing a little extra support, and we want you to be able to do that safely for everyone involved. So you'll be required to take that training as well. And that basically is orientation. Hopefully it provides everything that you need. But again, like I said, we're here. We're ready and willing to help you through anything. Starting a new job, there's lots to learn. So we want to just welcome you again and say, don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks for being here. Take care.
Hello, I am Donna DeBartolomeo, the IT support specialist here at the IU. I will be taking you through registering on the website and accessing your email. Hopefully you have all received your email information. If you have not, please contact your supervisor. All right, let's get started. Our homepage is www.dciu.org. When you first go to register, just go to our homepage, click on register, enter your birth date, hit submit. The only boxes that technically have to be filled out are the ones with the red asterisk. Now, you do need to have an email address in order to register. I suggest using your IU one, but if you have a personal one, that's perfectly fine. You also get to create your own username and password. I also suggest that you keep it the same as your email, but you don't have to, as our email passwords change every 90 days. The website login password will not. After you have filled out everything, click I have read and agreed to the web community, hit submit. Once I get notified, and please give me at least 24 hours for that, I will give you access to IU staff. After that, when you get to our homepage, there are some links on the homepage. You can take your time looking at them. We also have some general quick links down here, such as our Employee Access Center, in which case you do not have to log into the website to access. Along with our mail link, which is up top here. Again, you don't have to log in, but if you want to get to anything under IU staff, you will have to sign in. So just click the sign in button. Your username and password, and as you notice, we get IU staff. I will briefly take you through this to show you where things are. Our COVID-19 staff site, Apple volume purchase plan, logos and templates, which is necessarily, they have to be used when sending any correspondence from within the IU, Education Foundation, Access Center, evaluation, forms, and manuals. Now, we are gradually moving most of our forms to online forms, but there are still some that are not, and this is where they are located. Again, take your time and go through to see which forms are there. We also have administrative directives that are issued to us by our executive director. These are short 1 to 2 page directives. Again, you have to know where they are and take your time when you have a chance and go through them. Benefits information, manuals and policies. This is where all our manuals are. Induction, hiring practices, mentoring, internet access, email network acceptable use policy, which you do sign off on, basically states you will behave yourself while on any IU computer and/or network. Board policy manual. This is something you also need to know where it is located. When you get a chance, please take a look at it, along with our employee handbooks. We also have student data reporting forms, child accounting forms, and this is where they all are. Some of us have to fill out timesheets weekly, and this is where that link is. And last but not least, we have STARS information. Okay, we also have induction and TA mentoring. Our job descriptions are all online. Forgive me, I have a touchy touchpad here. Frontline My Learning Plan information, workers' compensation, and adapted stories. And as usual, when you are done, please sign out. As I said before, the link for mail is on our homepage. Let's go back there. You do not have to sign in for it. You would just click on mail, enter your IU email address and your password. and then you are in your email. When you are done your email, please sign out when my computer wants to cooperate with me today. And then you are done. If you have any questions, please contact the service desk at servicedesk@dciu.org or via phone 610-938-9393. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Paula Coons, and I'm with the DCIU Professional Learning Department. And I'm just going to give you a short overview of the Frontline Professional Growth Registration System. At some point in time, you may need to register for a meeting or a workshop, and this is where you would go to register for that. I'm just going to share my screen. Bear with me for a moment. You would find the login for Frontline System on the DCIU website. What you want to do is scroll down to the bottom of the website, and there's a link for MLP event registration. It was formerly called My Learning Plan, and it's now Frontline. So you would click on that link, and this opens up our general catalog. This is the registration catalog for events that district or outside staff might attend. They would also use the Frontline system to register, and this is where they would find information on this catalog. Before you can actually log in, you'll be sent an invitation to create a username and password for the Frontline system. So you would have to create that first before you can log in. In the near future, if you don't receive an invitation, please email me. Again, my name is Paula Coons, and my email is pcoons@dciu.org. What I'm going to do is log in. And I'm also going to email you this information so you have it. Once you're logged in, the first screen that would show would not be this. This is what I would usually see. You'll see a different screen. The first screen that you would see would be My Requests, and here would show approved or in progress sessions. That's actually events that you might be registered for presently, and the recently completed section. And that's pretty much all that you would see on this screen. So what I'll do is go to the activity catalogs, and for the DCIU staff trainings, they would be listed on the internal catalog. So we'll click on that. And this shows you that internal catalog. When you're looking for something that you need to register for, make sure you check the title, and there are different ways to search. You can search by title or description. You can search by the date. I'm just going to scroll down and walk through registering for an activity. Choose this one. You click on the title, and it brings up a brief description with the date, the time, the location. This is an online training. Most of the trainings are online due to the COVID-19 situation now. It'll give you a description. Make sure that you check your target audience, that you're registering for the correct activity. Purposes, that lists the credit that you would receive for attending this training. If you're a teacher and Act 48 hours shows here, you could receive Act 48 towards your 180 hours that you need to accumulate. That's for Pennsylvania certified educators. If you're a special education para-educator, you need to accumulate 20 hours per year of training, and you could apply this training. It's 2 hours for this training towards that. It gives you the instructor information. If you have any questions, you can always click on their email address and email them directly. And then just click sign up now. And you'll get an on-screen confirmation that you're enrolled, and you'll also get an email confirmation that you're enrolled. You can go back and click on the Learning Plan tab and just verify that it is now listed in your approved or in progress session, so you're registered for that. You can also manage the session from here. So you cannot attend and you have to unregister, you click on Manage. Just verify that that's the session that you want to unregister from. And you could click Drop. And you'll have to input a brief description here as to why you're dropping the request. And once you click Drop the request, you'll get an on-screen confirmation that you have been unregistered. And again, you can verify that by going to your Learning Plan tab. And it's no longer listed in the Improved or In Progress section. When the session occurs, after the session, I would receive notification of who attended and the amount of time that you attended. I generally update the attendance within about a week after receiving notification. And at that time, you would get an email asking you to complete an evaluation. If you're a certified teacher and need Act 48 hours, the evaluations are required. We keep those on record for PDE information for Act 48. But we do appreciate all feedback. So if you could take a few minutes just to complete them, just to provide some feedback, we would appreciate it. You may need to register at some point in time for something that's open to districts as well as our staff. And you would go to the activity catalog and click on DCIU catalog. And this shows the catalog that we saw when we first went through the website. That's the first catalog that came up, is the public catalog. It's a little bit different. You would click on the title, just verify everything, and then click Enroll, and it will walk you through registration. Some of these sessions may require a payment for which you would get information from your supervisor or program secretary for a budget code if there is a fee required. And then you would plug that budget code in when you're in the process of registering, and then the program would be invoiced. As far as an approval process for registering for activities, there is no formal approval process through Frontline. You would still need to go through your approval process for your program, whether it be getting permission from your supervisor or director, whatever form that may be. You may have to fill out a form, but there is no approval process within Frontline. So please make sure that you get your approval for anything that's fee-based or not program directed before you register. And that's pretty much all there is for registering for an activity through the Frontline system. If you have any questions, again, you can email me, pcoons, that's PCOONS @DCIU.org. And like I said, I will be emailing you this information too, just so you have it for your records. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Hello, my name is Kathy Kaminsky. I am the payroll coordinator at the Delaware County Intermediate Unit. Today we're just going to go over a little bit about how your payroll is processed. So this is the payroll schedule and the pay dates of the finishing out for this year, depending on when you come in to start this year. If you are hired on if you start on a pay week, a Monday through Friday, and that pay date is on a Friday, you wouldn't be getting paid till the following pay, just so you have an idea of when the payroll would start. So this is how we figure out your biweekly. So because you're coming in through the year, we take your full annual salary, and that would be the letter that you had received in the mail, and we divide that by the contract days, the total contract days. So if you were 261 or 190 or 188 or 91, you would take that full salary, you would divide it by that number to get your per diem. And that's how much you make a day. So we take that number and we're going to times that by the number of days that are remaining in the school year. And then we divide that through the pays that are left. So this pay schedule would give you an idea based on what contract you're in. If you were a 10-month or a 12-month, you could look at this pay schedule and scroll over to see how many pays you would be getting remaining. So if you're a 10-month, you would get your pays through September. If you're a 12-month, your pays would stop in June, and then the new contract year would start July 1. So we would take that salary and we would divide it over the number of pays that are left, and that would be your adjusted biweekly for the remainder of the year. And then starting the new fiscal year, you would go back to your full salary. Your biweekly will probably be a little lower, only because, you know, at this point, there's not very many days left in the contract year. So I just want you to be aware of that right now. But it would go back to your, you know, full salary July 1. And again, if you were a 10-monther, it wouldn't be effective till September. So I guess if you have questions, and I'm sure everybody's going to have questions, it's a little hard to understand, you can give me a call or Curry. Curry Tryans works alongside with me, and her extension is 2010, and my extension is 2011. So if you have any questions, you can always give either one of us a call, and we'll be able to go through the process with you and explain how the whole thing works. So hope you guys have a great day.
Welcome to Delaware County Intermediate Unit. This training was developed for new hirees to ensure that they use safe and effective behavior management strategies when interacting with students and other staff members. Our agenda for today includes a lot of how-tos. We want to make sure that you understand how to create a safe and supportive environment, build relationships as they are critical and make a difference in the way students perform in school, demonstrate good safety habits and understand the ABCs of behaviors, and recognize power struggles. It's very important not to engage in them, as they can often increase the challenging behavior. And lastly, we will finish the training by reminding you to embrace self-care and make sure that you are taking care of your emotional and physical health. Prevention is the key. It's much better to prevent behavioral incidents from happening than it is to manage them. The more we do to anticipate and avoid problems before the fact, the better we can concentrate on the much more fundamental task of helping students to learn positive life skills. Key features of prevention are setting up your environment for success. Examples include using visuals to cue expectations to increase understanding. It is important to maintain safety for all and be consistent with behavior expectations. Always model respect in your interactions with students, especially when they test limits. How you respond will either increase or decrease their challenging behavior. If you raise your voice or display confrontational body language, students could view this as a threat, which may heighten their negative behavior. It is expected that DCIU staff remain professional and in control of their own behavior at all times. These are visual cues. All students can benefit from visual supports to help them remember and understand. These particular visuals cue behavioral expectations. These next few slides will focus on how to create a safe environment. This includes arranging the physical environment, materials, furniture, and environmental visuals. Environmental visuals are supports that can help structure your classroom and decrease the need for prompting. Students access many parts of our buildings, including DCIU's Education Service Center. All employees, administrators, administrative assistants, custodians, related service personnel, teachers, and assistants need to take safety precautions regarding materials, supplies, and furniture. For example, no one should walk around with open containers of hot liquid, as they pose a safety risk. Scissors and other dangerous items should be stored in a secured area. Custodians should be careful not to leave equipment unattended in the hall, as it poses a safety risk. As previously mentioned, DCIU services a wide range of students. The purpose of this illustration is to provide an example of classroom organization and ease of traffic flow. The layout of your room should reflect the students that you teach. Some students may throw items when they are upset or put small objects in their mouth. It is very important that you create a safe environment for everyone. Remove or secure items that are considered unsafe. Dangerous objects include anything that can cause injury to a student or staff member. These include scissors, staplers, push pins, or items that can be thrown, such as a water bottle, books, or toys. Basically anything in your room, including chairs and desks, can become dangerous objects. As soon as you observe a student exhibiting signs of agitation, it is very important to get the other kids to safety and secure your environment. Be very careful when setting up your classroom. Although these materials look organized, they may quickly become a safety hazard if a highly escalated student begins throwing items around. Objects on top of the bookcase and windowsill should be stored in a closet. If you do not have ample storage space, try storing items up high and out of reach. If you have a student who, when they become angry or agitated, pulls everything off your shelf, consider velcroing a piece of fabric over the shelves as a visual deterrent. The second portion of creating a safe environment is about how you can dress for safety. If your site has required dress code, then adhere to the dress code. Avoid items that can be easily grabbed, such as dangling jewelry, neckties, or scarves. Upon being hired, you will be issued a lanyard and photo ID. It is a requirement that you display your ID at all times. In some instances, it might be better to attach your ID to a belt loop or shirt pocket, as little kids can be easily distracted by your photo and pull on your lanyard to look at the picture. If in the event that you're in the presence of an agitated student, either tuck your lanyard in your shirt or temporarily remove it until the student calms down. Don't wear clothing that is too loose or too tight. Avoid hoodies, as the strings can become a choking hazard. Tie back long hair. Wear closed-toed shoes that you can walk or run safely in. It's very important that you have shoes with traction on. And avoid sandals, flip-flops, or high heels. If you are ever concerned about how you can dress for safety, please talk to your immediate supervisor. The other thing you want to look at in creating a safe environment is to build positive relationships. Some of your students may not have a positive relationship outside of your classroom. When students experience a sense of trust with adults, they feel safe, which allows them the opportunity to learn and grow. Building positive relationships provides students with a sense of trust, promotes dignity and fosters mutual respect, minimizes behavior issues, intensity and duration, and models empathy and compassion. When you think about it, a student is much more likely to listen to you in times of stress if they trust and have a relationship with you. The following are ways to build relationships with your students. Stand at your door and greet them with warmth every day. Use their name in a positive way to create a feeling of respect. Take two is a great strategy. All that means is take 2 minutes out of your day to talk about something other than school. Use active listening, which we will discuss on the next slide. And acknowledge how students learn differently. One of the most important things you can do is to model calming strategies and problem-solving skills. Your goal in problem solving is seeking to understand why a particular incident happened and develop strategies to prevent it from occurring again. This is active listening. The most important aspect of active listening is to allow the student to talk. Try your best not to interrupt them. The goal here is to understand their perspective. Ask 1 to 2 probing questions such as, tell me what happened and how can I help you? The goal is to identify the trigger and what could be done differently next time. If you're an employee who is not in the classroom, active listening can be used when you're having a discussion with a fellow employee. Relationships and responding to behavior. Whenever behavior happens, it is your reaction that determines whether you see it again or not. We have to change our behavior. These are safety habits that you should follow every day. Continuously scan your environment. There's two reasons why you're doing this. One is you're looking for students who are on track and you want to give them praise. And second, you're looking for students who may be agitated and need your help. Know where your exits are and be sure you can get out of an area. The biggest mistake the teachers make, including myself as a young teacher, is to only have one entrance into your desk area. I did this primarily because I didn't want students to get into my stuff. And what I realized was if they became very agitated and came after me, I could not get out of the desk area. So be careful with that. You want to watch body language, tone of voice, and facial expressions and respond to them because usually they're subtle cues that a student is upset. Use very careful positioning with an agitated student. Make sure your proximity is a student's arm's length away plus 1 foot. This is a safe approach. You're actually approaching a student from a 45-degree angle, and you want to avoid crossing the midline. The midline is the front of the student's body. This is particularly important to remember when a student is agitated. You do not want to approach them from the front as you are putting yourself in harm's way, and the student could view your approach as a threat. You always want to approach at a 45-degree angle. This is Colvin's curve. When would you rather intervene? When a student is calm or when they're highly agitated and at peak? At the calm stage, students are cooperative and following expectations. Your goal should really be to keep students as calm as possible so you can maximize your instruction. There are several ways you can do this. One is by providing positive descriptive praise for expected behaviors that are exhibited. Examples of these might include using indoor voice, sharing materials, completing assignments, or raising their hand to speak. Another way to keep kids calm is to maintain a consistent environment that includes clearly established routines and procedures. An example of a routine might be hallway transitions. The procedure could look something like this. When we are walking in the hall, use a quiet mouth, keep hands at your side, and use walking feet. Use pre-correction and state expectations before a negative behavior can occur. One example would be, before you start group work, I want to review how to get help. If you need help, quietly ask a peer in your work group. If they don't know the answer, go to the next problem and you can ask me at break. Another example might be transitioning from recess back into the building. Teacher gains attention from all students and says, remember when the whistle blows, you will put all your equipment in the bin, line up at the yellow line, have a quiet mouth, and keep hands to yourself. It is highly beneficial to have students verbally repeat the expectation. Using pre-corrections is a proactive strategy to decrease the likelihood of negative behaviors from occurring. At the next stage, a student is triggered by something in the environment that upsets a student. Examples of this might include presence of a non-preferred task or a change in schedule. When the trigger occurs, you will see signs of agitation, which is the next step. Sometimes this is referred to as the signal. Students will exhibit signs of agitation when a trigger is present. This might include rocking back and forth, clenching fists, or crying. We will address triggers and signals later on in the presentation. After agitation, a student begins to accelerate. This means there's an intensity in their behavior and they might begin to lose irrational thought. At this stage, focus on maintaining a safe environment and use active listening to clarify student concerns. Limit your conversations as students may have a difficult time processing information at this stage. Use clear directives and prompt incompatible behaviors. If a student is kicking a wall, say, let's go for a walk. A student can't kick the wall and walk at the same time. Praise any compliance that you see, such as, thank you for walking with me. If a student is yelling, offer them a drink of water. They can't yell and drink at the same time. Your goal here is to try to get this behavior to stop going to peak. The next stage is peak. The student is out of control at this stage and may exhibit severe behavior such as screaming, physical aggression, or self-injurious behavior. It is very important that you use your building crisis intervention procedures and maintain a safe environment for your student and others. If you are unaware of your building crisis procedures, ask your building supervisor. Once the environment is secured, it can be beneficial to withdraw attention from the student and allow them time to calm down. This would include no talking or eye contact. During de-escalation, a student's behavior begins to subside and there's a drop in energy level. Their breathing may have slowed down and their body is more calm. Allow additional time to cool down and make sure the student regains control before proceeding. During recovery, a student may feel shame, sorrow, or regret for the behavior they exhibited. At this stage, staff should focus on debriefing and problem solve how to prevent the future behavior from occurring. Some students may re-escalate if you debrief too early. Use caution at this stage. This next section is on managing your own behavior. There will be times when you may experience stress or frustration at work. Despite these challenges, you must always behave professionally. Think about the things you're saying and how you present yourself. You are modeling the behaviors you want your students to use. Use polite, age-appropriate language, say please and thank you, and model respect regardless of their behavior. Recognize your own triggers. Use clear, concise directives. Don't ask questions. Tell a child exactly what you want them to do. Please sit down versus do you want to sit down? Watch your tone and volume of voice. It should be positive if things are going well and neutral if not. Be aware of your facial expressions, your posture, and avoid power struggles. And most importantly, stay calm. This is the cycle of a power struggle. Student acts out. Teacher feels disrespected or personally attacked and accepts a challenge. Student increases rage in response. Teacher feels threatened by the student's response. And a power struggle cycle has begun. The following are examples of power struggles that staff may engage in. Using intimidating posture, distance, movement, eye contact, angry gestures or facial expressions. Raising your voice and shouting at students is a power struggle and does not communicate respect. In fact, some of the students we work with may view this as a threat, which can heighten their aggressive behavior. Applying inappropriate or excessive negative consequences or threatening to do so. Common behavior staff struggle with are students who refuse to move from point A to point B. This can include dropping to the floor in the middle of the hall or refusing to leave an area. An example of an excessive, threatening, negative consequence might be, if you don't stand up, you're going to get suspended. Other examples of power struggles include using inappropriate physical force or threatening to do so, promising inappropriate, excessive, or undeliverable rewards for compliance, and nagging, which is a huge power struggle. If you ask a student to do the same thing 2 to 3 times, you are nagging and in a power struggle. Believe it or not, simple directives can easily become power struggles. For example, a student walks into your classroom and throws their backpack on the floor. Staff might say, pick up your backpack. Student walks away and staff repeats, pick up your backpack. The first 2 times got no results, so staff once again say, pick up your backpack. This is a power struggle. You can easily avoid nagging by changing your directives. The first time, you might use the student's name and say, Mary, please pick up your backpack. It's really important to pause and wait 5 to 10 seconds after giving a directive to allow students processing time. For the second prompt, you might point to the backpack picture on Mary's morning routine schedule and say, "Mary, what's next?" And lastly, you could hand Mary her backpack and say, "Mary, put it where it goes." Engaging in power struggles can increase the intensity of students' negative behavior and should be avoided. Power struggles or fight for control of a situation and can trigger challenging behaviors. Not only do they do that, but they also can negatively affect relationships. They don't model behaviors you want the student to exhibit and sometimes can lead to retaliation from the student. How do you know if you're engaged in a power struggle? Your tone of voice. It will become parental versus professional. Your posture, your eye contact, gestures, and distance will increase, and you will be repeating yourself, nagging. You may be using threatening negative consequences, and you are reacting emotionally and getting agitated yourself. The definition of a behavior trap is reinforcing the challenging behavior because in the short run it stops. A classic example of this frequently occurs at the grocery store checkout. Most of us have witnessed a child or two crying for candy and a parent giving them the candy just to keep them quiet. This is a behavior trap. The trigger occurs, student exhibits behavior, adult reinforces the behavior, student stops the behavior, and adults and students are both happy. The picture here is a Band-Aid. It just fixes it temporarily, but it will increase in the future. It's a short-term fix to a long-term problem. Student starts arguing with teacher when given assignment. Teacher tells student to go to the office. Student gets out of work, which he's happy about, and teacher doesn't have to listen to the arguing. So it's basically a win-win for everyone, but only lasts a brief short time and does not teach a new skill, because now the teacher has taught the student that every time they argue about an assignment, they will get to leave the room and not have to do it. Understanding challenging behaviors. Behaviors happen for a reason. Once we know the reason, you can help the student learn a new way to communicate their needs. We have a tendency to focus on the behavior versus what is causing the behavior. It's not the student's fault. He or she is just doing what has worked for them in the past. Many of the students we work with have an individualized education plan, also known as an IEP. In order to qualify for an IEP, a child is diagnosed with a disability and is in need of specially designed instruction. There can be many contributing factors that are beyond the scope of an IEP that may be impacting behavior. Understanding these different factors will help to develop a clear picture of each student's patterns of behavior. Take a minute to look through this table. The following are examples and not an inclusive list. Psychiatric conditions are mental health diagnoses. Additional examples are obsessive compulsive disorder, often referred to as OCD, oppositional defiant disorder, ODD, and post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Neurological are diagnoses that impact brain processing. In addition to autism, ADHD, and traumatic brain injury, are intellectual disabilities and cerebral palsy. Medical and physical factors are individualized to your students. Additional examples may include diabetes, lack of sleep, or hunger. It's important to develop a method of communication with parents or caregivers so you can be aware of factors that may impact a student's day. History is relevant aspects of what the person has done and experienced that might affect challenging behavior. This includes family structure, living arrangements, abuse, etc. Culture, racial, and gender are challenging behaviors learned from the person's social environment. These can include racial and gender prejudice, as well as rebellion against authority. It's important to note that conditions or diagnoses does not determine that someone will exhibit challenging behavior. The ABCs of behavior are the antecedents to the behavior, what happens before the behavior, what the person is actually doing, it should be observable or measurable by anyone, and the consequence, what happens directly after the behavior. The ABCs of behavior help us to look at the context of the behavior, when does it occur, and how does staff respond. The antecedent is typically what causes the behavior. For example, the fire alarm goes off and the student screams. Staff respond by offering headphones. Recognizing the antecedent allows us to intervene early and potentially head off crisis. If you know a student becomes upset when the fire alarm goes off, there are strategies that you can try to prevent that behavior from occurring. One would be to offer headphones. The second option might be to give them advance warning. And another one would be to read them a social story about fire alarms and practicing safety. These are a few common behavior scenarios. An antecedent is a student is presented with a non-preferred task. Student starts to scream, that's the behavior, and the consequence is staff removes the task. In this instance, you have to be really careful because the consequence is either going to maintain the behavior or it's going to change it. In this case, removing the task is very likely going to reinforce the screaming. The second example is staff request. Student runs away and staff go and get the student and bring them back to their desk. So in this instance, the consequence may actually change the behavior. There's two reasons why behavior happens. It's called the functions of behavior. It's either to gain access or it's to escape. Examples of gaining access are attention from teacher, attention from peer, they want an item or activity. Sometimes we'll see that if students are trying to seek sensory input, they're trying to gain access to that. And the other one is to escape or avoid. A demand from staff, an assignment, an activity or situation, or pain. Why determine the function of behavior? Because we want to teach a more socially acceptable way to meet their needs. Examples include if a student is interrupting a conversation to gain attention, we want to teach them how to say, "Excuse me." If they're calling out to get attention, I also want to teach them a more appropriate way to do this, such as raising their hand. If I know a student's behaving poorly to get my attention, I'm going to increase my attention and provide descriptive praise for positive behaviors observed. Another example would be escape, or a student is dropping to the floor because they want to get out of the task. I'm going to teach them how to ask for a break. The definition of reinforcement is any consequence that increases the probability of a behavior occurring. It is a consequence that strengthens behavior, whether it is positive or negative. Whatever is reinforced will happen more often in the future. Unfortunately, staff may inadvertently reinforce the negative behavior. An example of this may occur when a student drops to the floor in the middle of the hall to get attention from staff. Staff spend several minutes talking to the student and trying to cajole them into standing up. Present staff is unsuccessful and another staff member intervenes. The student has been given attention from multiple staff, and it is very likely that there will be an increase in this behavior. The student will continue to drop to the floor, and sometimes on a more frequent basis. How do you know that the reinforcer is working? Unless you see the behavior changing in the direction you want, whether it is increasing or decreasing, you're just giving the student an item or activity, not a true reinforcer. Reinforcement is different for everyone. What is reinforcing to one is not necessarily reinforcing to another person. Reinforcement is a powerful teaching tool. When reinforcement is used correctly, it will increase the behaviors you want to see occur more often. How do we use reinforcement? Number 1, find out what the student likes and develop a list. Save the highly preferred reinforcers for the most difficult time of the student's day. We can use reinforcement to teach new behaviors when challenging behaviors aren't happening. For example, with our little guy who was dropping to the floor to get our attention, we would only talk to him when he was walking down the hall as expected. This scenario was also an example of how staff accidentally reinforced the negative behavior because they engaged in conversation with him when he was on the floor. When we accidentally reinforce behaviors, they will strengthen the behavior and it will happen more often. Try your best to avoid this situation. Differential reinforcement is the procedure used to replace challenging behavior with more desirable behavior. In layman's terms, it's actually when you reinforce positive behavior and withhold attention from the negative behavior. You want to catch them being good and reinforce desirable behaviors. For example, you have a student who's frequently calling out during class. You're going to withhold attention from them calling out. Instead, you're going to praise them when they're quiet or their hand is raised. You're going to say, "Thank you for raising your hand. I love how you're sitting there quietly." Be very specific in the praise you give. If you want to see it happen again, then reinforce it. 3 examples of schedules of reinforcement are continuous reinforcement, one-to-one, intermittent or random reinforcement, catch them being good, and structured reinforcement. Continuous reinforcement is also known as frequent reinforcement. It is typically used to teach new behaviors. An example would be a student who is constantly out of their seat. When you're trying to establish sitting in their seat, you would praise every time the student sits down and provide frequent praise while they remain seated. It is referred to as one-to-one because every single time a behavior happens, it needs to be reinforced. Catch them being good is a huge relationship builder. Praise the positive behaviors so the negative behaviors will extinguish. You want to praise students during good times so they will follow your requests when they're engaging in negative behavior. An ideal ratio for positive classroom climate is 4-to-1 positive to every 1 negative comment. The 4-to-1 ratio means that for every 1 negative correction, you need to provide 4 positive corrections. The tendency is for staff to provide feedback on the negative behavior that we don't want rather than focusing on reinforcing the behavior that we do want. An example is a student who constantly interrupts others when they are talking. The negative correction is "Stop interrupting others, John." The 4 positive comments would look like this. "Thank you for waiting your turn, John. John, I see you're standing quietly and letting me talk. Thank you. I appreciate your saying, 'Excuse me, John. Give me 1 minute.' John, that's an awesome job raising your hand." The 4-to-1 ratio should be used as a guide to ensure enough positive reinforcement is being delivered to get the behavior that you want. The more you can find and reinforce behavior, the higher the likelihood that the student's behavior will be extinguished and changed. The key here is to reinforce the positive behavior you want as much as possible. There are 2 key components to structured reinforcement systems. The first one is the expectation and what the student will do and for how long. And the second one is what the reinforcer will be if the expectation is met. It is very specific. Students know exactly what they have to do and what they will earn when they're finished. The key here is to make sure that student is choosing the reinforcer. These are examples of structured reinforcement systems. In the upper left-hand side, you will see a behavior contract, which is usually mutually agreed on with a staff member and a student, and tells them exactly what their expectations are and what they will get when they successfully complete the contract. On the far right is a first then that also includes behaviors. The student needs to listen, sit in their chair, keep their hands to themselves. First might be the academic piece that they have to do, and then when they're finished, they get something else. On the bottom right-hand side is a token economy system that a lot of our classrooms use. The student is working for a computer. In order to earn that, they have to earn 5 stars. And then on the far left is a first then for an art class. Sometimes some of our kids have sensory issues and maybe they would prefer to use glue, but we want to let them know that say we're using glue, and when you're done gluing, then you can pick your choice, and this kid happens to like modeling clay. Don't underestimate the power of using a first then to provide clear, concise expectations. This can be used for kids from preschool all the way to high school. You want to tell the student exactly what they need to do and let them choose something reinforcing to work for. In this particular example, a student was struggling in reading class, and when we wrote down exactly what they had to do, they were more successful. They had to read pages 5 to 6, write a 3-sentence summary using capital letters and punctuation, answer questions 1 to 5, and raise their hand when finished. When all of these items were checked off, they were able to read their library book for 5 minutes. This is also known as the Premack principle or Grandma's law. Many of us experienced this growing up, where we were told to eat our vegetables first and then we would get dessert. Providing clear, concise directives enables a student to successfully complete expectations. This can be used academically or behaviorally. Effective reinforcement has these characteristics. Reinforcement should happen right after or during the behavior you want to increase. Use descriptive praise and tell the student specifically what you like about his or her behavior. Make sure you understand what the person finds reinforcing and vary your praise. Avoid using the phrase "good job" as it does not specifically describe the behavior being observed. This really isn't that hard to do. All you want to do is you want to describe the behaviors you see. For example, you may have a student who, when you're transitioning in the hall, they're constantly touching things as they walk down the hall, and you happen to notice that they have their hands at their side. You're going to describe what you see and say, "Hey Johnny, I love how you have your hands at your side. That's awesome." Here are some fun facts about reinforcement. Believe it or not, we can improve behavior by 80% just by pointing out what one person is doing correctly. We know we can improve behavior by labeling with specific praise, but we use it less than 10% of the time. Try your best to increase the amount of descriptive praise you are providing to students and staff. It promotes positive behavior and builds relationships. These are samples of different types of reinforcement. We have social, which are high fives, descriptive praise, having a conversation, fist bumps, or thumbs up. Physical can also be known as tangible. Those are things that students actually can have, like edibles, stickers, tokens, or toys. And activities that students might like to engage in could be playing a game, lunch with teacher, going for a walk, listening to music, extra recess time. There's other ones such as doing errands for teachers or simply getting a drink. You have to know your students and what reinforces them. Think outside the box. If you're not sure, ask families, students, and use your observation skills. The key here is to make sure that you have enough reinforcement available to avoid satiation. What that means is that you've used the same reinforcer over and over again, and it's no longer powerful. It lost its value. An example of this might be listening to music every time a student finishes their work. If they do that every day, they may not want to do it anymore. When using differential reinforcement, always follow the behavior intervention plan. The behavior may get worse before it gets better. For example, if you have a student who was previously given attention for yelling, the behavior will actually increase when you begin withholding attention. This is called the extinction burst. Make sure all staff continue withholding attention. It'll be tough for a few days, but eventually you will see a decrease in the behavior. Reinforcement should be provided more often than the challenging behavior occurs. Withholding reinforcement is not the same as ignoring the person. This is a specific technique we use in differential reinforcement. The following are proactive strategies. It's important to use a schedule as it provides organization, structure, and predictability. All teachers should develop a daily schedule to inform students about expectations for the day. Ideally, it should be posted and referenced after each activity. This will decrease anxiety in students and help to facilitate smoother transitions. Materials should be prepared ahead of time to avoid loss of academic learning time and student focus. Sometimes people get confused between the difference between routines and expectations. Routines describe step-by-step responses of how students should complete daily classroom activities. Expectations describe what the student should do behaviorally and/or academically. Transitions are periods of time when teachers direct students to end one task or activity and begin another. They should be minimized, as this is often a time when disruptive behavior can occur. The key to successful transitions is for teachers to use a variety of structured approaches that will make each transition go more smoothly. As previously discussed, consider how you arrange your classroom. The layout should reflect the students you teach. These are key points to consider when developing in-class transitions. The first thing you want to do is identify a clear signal. A signal can be something as simple as flickering the lights on and off, clapping hands, or using a chime. This indicates that a change is about to be made. You should also provide a verbal warning with the amount of time that's left. Students need to clean up, and teachers should say what's next. It's best to reference the schedule. Make sure you have material ready for the next activity, and prior to transitioning to the next activity, set your expectations. This is what it might look like in the classroom. Teacher flicks the light on and off, then pauses 10 seconds. They provide a verbal warning and say, "You have 5 minutes to finish your test. When the timer goes off, I will collect your test. Put your pencil away and get ready for morning circle." The timer has gone off, tests are collected, and pencils are put away. Students remain sitting at their desk waiting for the next directive. Teacher references the schedule and says, "Math is finished, it's time for morning circle." When I give the signal, you will stand up and go to your assigned carpet square. Keep your hands to yourself, use listening ears, and a quiet mouth. Best practice is to review expectations prior to the next transition. Another example is the hallway. Prior to leaving the room, gain all your students' attention and state hallway expectations. It might be something like this. Remember what we are supposed to do in the hall. We have a quiet mouth, hands are at our side, and we use walking feet. If you notice that there is a drift in student behavior and they're not following expectations, you will need to reteach them through teacher modeling and guided practice. This is an example of a routine for independent seat work. You should spend the first few weeks of school teaching classroom routines and procedures. This is best taught through teacher modeling and guided practice. A routine for independent seat work would be to get materials, stay in designated area, use a quiet mouth. If you need help, ask to before me, raise your hand. While you're waiting, you can read your library book, and when you're finished, work on your enrichment activity. These are additional examples of classroom routines. This is in no way inclusive of all the routines you need to establish in your classroom. Some of the considerations are for movement, how students enter and exit the room, sharpening pencils, getting their personal supplies, or how they go from large group to small group instruction. There's non-instructional task routines, such as taking attendance, keeping the classroom neat, and lunch count. Materials management is important. That includes storage and turning in homework. And transitions, which were already discussed, but if you look, there's more, such as the AM arrival routine, change in activity, lunch, or the PM dismissal routine. Make sure you have clearly established routines for each of these areas. We discussed Colvin's curve earlier in the presentation, and when would you rather intervene? In spite of our best efforts to utilize classroom management techniques, there will be times when a student becomes upset about something in the environment. Your goal is to intervene as early as possible in the behavioral cycle to minimize the behavior and maximize safety for all. The best way to minimize incidents is to learn how to intervene at each level of a student's behavioral cycle. Make sure you clearly state expectations and consistently follow through with them. Use reinforcement, which we discussed earlier, and recognize students' triggers and signals. It is very important for you to understand the difference between triggers and signals. It might be helpful for you to write the definitions down, as often there is confusion between the two. A trigger is something in the environment that upsets a student. I will repeat that. A trigger is something in the environment that upsets a student. This is a list of common triggers: non-preferred tasks, other students, being told no, transitions, substitute teacher, and change in schedule. Keep in mind that your students could have different triggers. Students who have heightened hearing could be triggered by loud sounds. A signal is a behavior a student exhibits when they are upset. I will repeat that. A signal is a behavior a student exhibits when they are upset. If you look at the word signal, it actually has sign in it, S-I-G-N. That typically tells you that something's up when you read a sign. These are examples: head down, refusal to work, clenched fist, heavy breathing, rocking, and mumbling. There could be many other signals that students exhibit. I'm going to give you an example of the hierarchy. One of the things you really want to try and do is respond to the subtle signals as soon as possible. So I was not aware that I was presenting a difficult task to my student, and this is a trigger for him. So I present the difficult task, and the student starts to rock gently back and forth. I totally miss the signal, and I continue to teach. Student begins breathing heavy, then they rip their paper up, and they flip their desk. This is an example of how quickly a behavior can increase. If I were to respond to the student when they were rocking back and forth, and I said to them, "Tell me how I could help you," they might have been able to say, "This is too hard for me." So you really want to try and pay attention to subtle signals. Another signal that I experienced as a teacher is we were supposed to, which is a good practice, I didn't mind it at all. We stood at our door in the morning and greeted our students. And as I discussed earlier, the most important thing is for you to establish relationships with your students. So I have my student I have a great relationship with. His name's Johnny, and he comes in. I said, "Hey, Johnny, great to see you today. How you doing?" And he just blows by me and says nothing. And that is a signal to me. I could either, typically Johnny wouldn't get upset in my class because he had a relationship with me, but if I didn't intervene and try and find out what's wrong, and he were to go to another class, and one of his friends who typically triggered him by making fun out of him were to say something, it would have been a problem. So you really want to try your best and intervene when you see these subtle signals. Why know the antecedents? Sometimes it takes little detective work to identify students' triggers and signals. Analyzing the antecedent events may help. For example, if one of your students threw something on the floor, you would want to look at what was the activity occurring as the item was thrown on the floor. It's important to note that the trigger and signal often go hand in hand. Rarely will you see one occur without the other. If you are aware of a student's triggers and signals, it will enable you to rearrange the environment and intervene earlier. Let's look at the previous example provided of the student who was triggered by difficult tasks. There are two things I can do to help the student. First, rearrange how the task is presented. I might hand the student the assignment and quietly say, "Give me 1 minute to get the kids set up, and we will do the first two problems together." Secondly, I will teach the student to ask for help when presented with difficult tasks. A key point to remember is, although you manipulate the environment, you still need to teach the student how to deal with a trigger when it occurs in the future. This next section is about getting support during a behavioral crisis. How do you get help when you need it? Get help the minute you begin questioning whether or not it is needed. It will be safer for everyone involved. If you're a paraprofessional currently unaware of how to get help, ask your classroom teacher. If you are a teacher, ask your immediate supervisor. Who is in charge once you call for help? This is something you should find out upon being hired, as the procedure can vary from building to building. In some cases, it is the person who knows the student best and has relationship with them. There should be clear communication between staff. Only one person should speak with the agitated person. All adults should refrain from speaking about students in their presence, as this does not communicate respect or promote dignity and often can increase challenging behavior. If you are the assist staff, follow your leader's instructions. Never question other staff in front of the student. How to respond to signals. Talk quietly and remain calm. State your expectation of what you want the student to do. Avoid power struggles and reinforce any safe behaviors observed. These are the goals of de-escalation. Maintain the safety of all involved in the situation, including students and staff. Avoid making the situation worse, and decrease the intensity of the behaviors. If the student is standing in the hall and kicking the wall, you can simply say, "Please walk with me." Avoid reinforcing the challenging behavior. That would mean giving attention to it, saying something like, "Stop kicking the wall, stop screaming." You want to reinforce the positive behaviors you see. If a student is kicking the wall and you say, "Walk with me," then you're going to thank them. "Thank you for walking with me." If you talk to a student and you notice your interactions are increasing the behaviors, stop what you are doing and wait. What wait means is no talking, do not make eye contact, maintain a safe distance, and monitor the student for safety until you see signs that a student is becoming calmer. One of the best safety strategies is to develop a plan for responding to signals. Find out your building protocol and call for help if needed. Remove other vulnerable individuals out of the way. Consider creating an instructional bag to go if you need to take students out of the room. Secure the environment and remove any dangerous items. Stay calm and control your verbal, facial, and physical behavior. Reinforce safe, desirable behaviors. This might include a student walking with you, using a quiet voice, sitting quietly, breathing slowly, etc. Avoid reinforcing crisis behaviors. As previously mentioned, anytime you give attention to the negative behavior, you will feed it and it will grow. If you say to a student, "Stop screaming," you are disturbing everyone else. It is highly likely that their screaming will increase and it will last longer. Staff communication and errors that can occur during crisis. Attention is given to the negative behavior. If a student is exhibiting a negative behavior to get your attention and you reference the behavior while it is occurring, there is a high degree of probability that the behavior will continue or increase. For example, if a child is using profanity and you say, "Stop cursing," the cursing may increase and continue for a longer period of time. Another example is you are in the middle of de-escalating an agitated student when a well-meaning staff member will intervene and start talking to your student. They may say something like, "Stop talking to Mrs. Jones like that. you're being rude. This can also increase a student's negative behavior. Lastly, some staff refer to punishment or consequences during a potential crisis. For example, a student is highly agitated and kicking the wall. Staff says, if you don't stop kicking the wall, you're going to be suspended. Again, this is highly likely that the behavior will increase. A helpful tip is to establish hand signals with other staff members as a silent form of communication. Holding your hand up, like the picture illustrated, may indicate to the other staff member that you are okay and they should not intervene. There may be times, however, where you're not sure if help is needed. Consider holding up one finger to indicate that you would like staff to wait. If you do decide to use hand signals, you may ask your building supervisor if they already have ones established, or you may coordinate with your classroom staff. Safety at your work site. Immediately find out how to get help if needed, what team members are available for assistance, and what the building protocols are for classroom managed behavior. In Pennsylvania, school officials must be trained and certified in order to restrain students. Many DCIU programs utilize the safety care curriculum to certify employees. You may be asked to participate in one of these trainings. Stress is an inevitable part of any job. It's okay to ask for help. No matter how knowledgeable you are, there may be times when you need help, plain and simple. Asking for help doesn't make you weaker, it makes you better at your job. It's very important that you practice self-care. How do you manage stress? Maybe you get a good night's rest, eat healthy, exercise, cultivate relationships and connect with others. It's really important that you're aware of your triggers and signals and know when maybe you need to take a break. Establish some type of system in your classroom that you might say to your paraeducator or another colleague, something like, hey, I need to make a phone call. I'll be back in 2 minutes. That gives you an opportunity to walk out, catch your breath, and come back and recharge your batteries. Know your limits and ask for help when it is needed. Key points to remember. Get to know your students and build a relationship with them. Provide descriptive praise and catch students being good. Practice good safety habits and learn from them. Understand how and why crisis events happen and ways in which staff might inadvertently contribute to them. We leave you with these parting thoughts between teacher and child. I have come to a frightening conclusion. I am the decisive element in the classroom. It is my personal approach that creates the climate. It is my daily mood that makes the weather. As a teacher, I possess tremendous power to make a child's life miserable or joyous. I can be a tool of torture or an instrument of inspiration. I can humiliate or humor, hurt or heal. In all situations, it is my response that decides whether a crisis will be escalated or de-escalated, and a child humanized or dehumanized. Thank you for attending this training, and welcome to Delaware County Intermediate Unit. We wish you all the best in starting your new job.